Welcome back. I'm Dr. Elise Martin. Today in this episode we are covering Chapter 16 from the book Unlocking the Rhythm of Digestion in Autism. Up to this point, we've built a systems-level understanding of autism, how digestion, peptides, immune signaling, methylation, neurotransmitters, and rhythm interact to either support regulation or enforce braking. Now comes the practical question. If this is a dynamic system, how do we know where pressure is accumulating right now? This chapter is not about chasing perfect lab values. It's about learning how to read biological signals, both measured and observed, so that intervention becomes informed, targeted, and adaptive rather than reactive. One of the most frustrating experiences for families is being told that everything looks normal. Standard labs are designed to detect disease, not dysregulation. They answer questions like, is there organ failure? Is there infection? Is there acute deficiency? But autism rarely presents as a catastrophic failure. It presents as compensated strain, and compensated strain often hides in plain sight. This is why labs in autism must be interpreted as terrain markers, not pass-fail tests. In systems biology, biomarkers are not absolutes. They are indicators of direction. They tell us whether pressure is building upstream or downstream, whether clearance is keeping pace with demand, and whether the system is compensating or decompensating. A normal value does not always mean functional, and an abnormal value does not always mean pathological. Context is everything. Because digestion sits at the entry point of the system, gut-related markers often provide the earliest clues. Markers related to stool pH, pancreatic elastase, fecal fats, short-chain fatty acids, and microbial balance can suggest whether digestion is completing its work or leaving residue behind. But the most important information often comes from patterns, not single findings. Low elastase plus high fecal fat suggests enzyme insufficiency. Elevated pH plus dysbiosis suggests impaired acid cycling. Low butyrate plus inflammation suggests microbial imbalance. Each of these points to pressure upstream of signaling. Direct peptide testing is not always available, but peptide burden often leaves indirect fingerprints. Unexplained behavioral changes after dietary exposure, food cravings that feel compulsive rather than preferential, fluctuating focus and mood tied to meals, recurrent regression after gastrointestinal stress. When these patterns appear alongside lab markers of poor digestion or inflammation, peptide involvement becomes likely, even without direct measurement. Methylation is often assessed through markers like homocysteine, folate, B12, and sometimes same SAH ratios, but these numbers must be read carefully. Low homocysteine does not always mean healthy methylation. High B12 does not guarantee intracellular availability. One of the most telling patterns is volatility. Labs that shift dramatically in response to small interventions. That volatility often indicates upstream pressure, such as adenosine accumulation, rather than primary methylation failure. When methylation markers swing, the system is signaling congestion. Urinary neurotransmitter testing can offer insight, but only when interpreted correctly. These values reflect what the body is excreting, not necessarily what the brain is using. Low dopamine metabolites may reflect poor synthesis. High metabolites may reflect poor receptor utilization. Without context from digestion and methylation, neurotransmitter labs can mislead. They tell us what is happening, not why. Immune labs in autism often show subtle patterns. Low-grade inflammation, altered cytokine ratios, elevated histamine, suppressed IgA. These do not always point to infection. They often point to chronic signal confusion. An immune system exposed repeatedly to peptides, microbial fragments, or dysregulated gut signaling may shift into a semi-activated, semi-suppressed state. This immune ambiguity feeds directly into somatostatin tone and signal breaking. Some of the most valuable biomarkers are not drawn from blood. They are observed. Sleep timing, energy curves, reaction to stress, response to meals, sensory tolerance patterns of regression and recovery. These are not subjective noise. They are biological outputs. A system that crashes in the late afternoon is telling us something about energy availability and clearance. A system that improves overnight but worsens with daytime stimulation is revealing circadian misalignment. These clues often guide intervention more accurately than numbers alone. No single test captures system state. Autism is not localized, it is distributed. This is why the most informative approach is triangulation. Gut markers, plus methylation markers, plus behavioral patterns, immune tone, plus sleep rhythm, plus sensory response. Lab trends over time rather than isolated snapshots. Patterns reveal pressure, pressure reveals leverage. Static testing asks, what is happening now? Adaptive monitoring asks, how does the system respond when we change something? This distinction is critical. When an intervention produces improved sleep but increased irritability, pressure may have shifted downstream. Improved focus but worsened digestion. Upstream load may have increased. Transient improvement followed by crash. Flow may be temporarily forced. These responses are data. They guide sequencing. More data is not always better. In complex systems, excess data without context creates confusion. A smaller set of well-chosen markers, interpreted longitudinally and alongside functional observations, often provides clearer guidance than exhaustive panels. The goal is not certainty, it is orientation. Finally, it's important to remember, labs do not heal, they inform. They help us navigate, not dictate. When we treat lab values instead of system behavior, we risk forcing correction rather than restoring rhythm. This content and other content on this channel is for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a healthcare professional before making any changes to your health routines or treatment regimen. I would like to thank you for sticking around through the full episode and hopefully you found some value. Please share, like, and subscribe for the benefit of everyone in the ASD community. As we close this episode, I want to offer a reframing. Biomarkers are not judgments, they are signals. They tell us where the system is under strain, where it is compensating, and where it may be ready to move forward. When we learn to read these signals with patience and context, intervention becomes less reactive and more respectful. In the next chapter, we'll build on this foundation by exploring how real-time monitoring and feedback can help guide adaptive recovery, not by imposing control, but by listening to the system as it responds.